affirmations can unintentionally create a fight, a tug of war in our heads, where I'm affirming I'm wonderful and I'm great and everyone loves me. No, you're not. You stink and everyone hates you. Part of me knows stop doom scrolling at midnight and go to sleep. But this other part of me keeps going, one more video, just one more video, just one more video. Everybody has multiple personalities. We all have voices in our heads. Imagine if they could all get along with each other.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mind Valley Book Club. God, I can't even tell if we are live or not. I think I need to take a deep breath in and out and get grounded. So I hope you guys are doing fine today. So wherever you are, do say hi. Leave a message where you are in right now. I'm in London, as now is the tradition. Wow, I can't believe this. And my guest today, I suspect, is in US, but I suspect that only based on the bio and the book, but we can verify that in a moment. So I do encourage you to write where you're from and say hi. If you follow us on social media, you know that I encourage you guys to watch those sessions live rather than in recording, although I also understand that most of you guys do it in recording, but still live is a different energy. You get to ask your questions, and do send us questions in advance, because if I know that there are a few questions in advance, I'll actually pace myself. So this is the logistics out of the way, and thank you all of you who commented on my last video where I encouraged you guys to come online. The thing is that we very often have good intentions, and it never gets there. So a lot of you are watching this in recording, and hi to you as well. But it's better to have things in the calendar. That's how sports works for me. My guest today is Britt Frank. Welcome, Britt, to Mind Valley Book Club stage.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. And yes, I am in the US. Hello to everybody who's tuning in live.
Britt is a licensed therapist and social worker, and a therapist with experience and certifications in very many modalities. I would have to probably look into them, because I would mess up the names. But just to mention a few: internal family systems, somatic experiencing practitioner, and licensed specialist clinical social worker. Just to mention a few. She's also an authority on the topics she's talking about. Has been in quite a lot of national media in US, and also the author of 3 books, right? Am I correct with the number?
Yes, 3 books.
And we're discussing the latest book, Align Your Mind. If you have it, you're welcome to show it to the camera. Unfortunately, I have to work with all my books online. Yes, that's the book. I have to work with all my books either online or in my tablet, so I never get to touch them. And this is such a special thing, actually, to touch a book. So, Britt, as I was preparing for this interview, I noticed that your previous books were about being stuck and how to get unstuck. However, this one has a different approach, because I wouldn't say it's particularly about getting stuck, but although probably it helps with that as well. But the question is, so why are you talking about parts work? Well, the book is in essence about parts work, and parts work, it kind of sounds clear, but it also sounds a little bit confusing maybe, or mysterious. So where did that come from, and why is it important, and why did you depart from the theme of the previous 2 books?
The idea of parts work sounds freaking like witchcrafty and so woo and esoteric. What do you mean that my mind has these parts and that they talk to me? And so it really does sound strange. But if you listen to our language, we all talk about our parts. Part of me knows stop doom scrolling at midnight and go to sleep. But this other part of me keeps going, one more video, just one more video, just one more video. Part of me knows I should probably go to the gym, but this other part of me is just couch locked and not moving. So when we use that language, part of me is doing this, but part of me feels that. What are we talking about? And parts work is a very broad term that talks about how to work essentially with all of the voices in our heads. My quick elevator spiel, if you will, for what is parts work? What is this book about? I like to say, everybody has multiple personalities. We all have voices in our heads. Imagine if they could all get along with each other. Parts work shows you how. And my book is one way of working parts work. There's a lot of different modalities that use parts work. I like to keep things really simple and non-clinical. And so the book is all about how to actually work with all of those competing voices in your head so you don't feel like it's so noisy up there all the time.
So, talking about clinical, I mean, if we were talking about the different the different voices in our head, I guess it would be a little bit scary. So, I really enjoyed the disclaimer in the beginning of your book that it's not about the hallucination voices that you might hear in your head. So, who's this book for specifically?
And the disclaimer is important to me because, especially with everyone on social media being an expert and very general advice being handed out, if you are hearing voices that are not inside your head, that's not what I'm talking about. If you are high on a chemical and you are hearing things, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about hearing our own thoughts. This book is for anyone who has ever thought, why is it that I know what I'm supposed to do, but I can't seem to do it? I know. Drink the water, phone a friend, take a walk. The information for how to live a healthy life is not complicated. But nevertheless, most of us find ourselves feeling a little stuck between, I know what I want to do, I know what I'm supposed to do, I'm not doing it. So what's wrong with me? This book is for anyone who's ever wondered, why can't I get it together? Why am I not doing the things that I know would make life work better? And the answer is not because you're lazy or crazy or unmotivated. There's a reason that we have these conflicts in our thinking life. And parts work is a really beautiful and simple tool to help you start to solve that problem.
So, in essence, and of course, I'm probably very much simplifying this, but in essence, what you're saying is that if you're falling behind on something in your life and you would like to be something else, which you're not quite there yet, it's because the different parts of you are in conflict.
Well, sometimes it's because, life is a little bonkers right now. Sometimes it's because our political systems and economic insecurity. So, assuming that we've solved for basic needs and safety, relative safety, assuming that you have choices is what I'm saying. If you have choices, if there's no logical reason why you can't do the things that you want to do or that you hope to do, like you have the resources to a degree, you have the mobility to a degree. What's the problem here? And having practiced with people for more than a decade, I hear them say, well, if I'm not doing the things I know I want to be doing, it must be because there's something wrong with me. And what parts work says is, well, there's nothing inherently wrong with you. It's that we don't know that thoughts don't necessarily mean truth. The biggest mistakes I see people making with their thinking is they either believe it, well, I think I am a terrible person, therefore it must be true. So I'm just going to believe everything I think. That's one mistake. The second mistake is ignoring it. Like, I don't want to hear anything I'm thinking. I don't want to listen to what's happening in my head. I want to tune it out, numb it out, and distract it. That's not a good way to work with it, too. So we don't want to listen to it and we don't want to ignore it. But the third mistake is that we fight with it, right? You're lazy. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. And affirmations, which are wonderful, and I do them, but affirmations can unintentionally create a fight, a tug of war in our heads where I'm affirming I'm wonderful and I'm great and everyone loves me. No, you're not. You stink and everyone hates you. And now we have this pull. So neither listening, ignoring, nor fighting with ourselves is usually very successful. And so, what's the solution? Parts work is a framework, a set of tools, a step by step. You do this, then you do this, then you do this, that can help you find a fourth solution and a sustainable one. And again, life's not easy. I'm not saying life is easy, but some of the tools that really, really do move the needle for how we feel about ourselves and our ability to move through our lives, the tools are not complex and they're not rocket science, thankfully.
And talking about tools, by the way, this book is very extraordinarily structured, I must say. So if you haven't gotten the book yet, I do recommend it. Well, I never interview anyone unless I recommend the book, so obviously. But if you haven't read the book yet, yes, that's how it looks. And we'll share the link as well so you can get it. So it's as I said, it's extraordinarily structured because, of course, I've read loads of books. A lot of them are very well structured. This book is actually catering for all kinds of patience and attention span. And in the very beginning, in fact, Britt explains how you can read the book depending on how much time you have or how little time you have. And talking about practical tools now, finally, each chapter does have three versions of exercises you can do: a very short version, 1 to 5 minutes, a little longer version, and for the perfectionists and straight A students, there is the longest version as well. If you really want to work through, or if you are stingy on the therapist and you want to do the work by yourself. Sorry, forgive my joking, please. Now, back to what you were talking about, Britt. I wanted to ask, you mentioned in the very beginning of the book that not everybody hears the voices, which was a very interesting revelation, which sent me off on my own thinking tangent about, how I generalize my own experience onto the whole humanity. So since you work with people, and I think you somewhere there was the number that you've worked more than 10,000 hours collectively of doing therapy with people. So how common is it that people actually do hear an internal monologue, or they have an internal monologue, and those who do not, who have the blissful silence in their head, what's up with that?
It's so true. And it really does show just how fascinating human minds are. And so if you're wondering which one are you, there's a comedian, Pete Holmes, who talks about this, and I love his work. So sing happy birthday in your head right now. Not out loud, just hear yourself sing happy birthday. Ready? Go. Okay, so did you hear the song and the words in your head? That means that you can hear your thoughts. Now, there for me predominantly I work with people who can hear their thoughts in words. Now there are some people who don't actually think in words and they have no internal monologue, and if you ask them sing happy birthday, it's silence up there. I have no earthly idea how that happens or why, and it's rare that I work with people that have a silence mind. It happens, and when that happens I have lots of other tools and modalities to use, but parts work is just not a great one if you don't think in terms of words and talking to yourself and thinking to yourself. But I find it fascinating with people who have no inner thoughts. It's not that they don't think, it's not that they're not, thoughtful. It's just their thought life takes a whole nother form, and I will have to report back because I don't know a whole lot about that. That's outside my scope of practice.
Your book was probably the first one that made me even think about the possibility of that happening. Now, if you're listening to us online or in recording, and you dare, you can verify yourself. I promise we don't judge you. We are just genuinely curious about that. My mind is usually blank. Wow, that's amazing. I believe there's a difference between a blank mind and thinking in other modalities rather than the monologue. But leaving that very interesting theoretical question aside, let's get back to the work at hand. So, what are the different parts? Because on one side, it's kind of logical. Like, yeah, there are contradicting voices in my head that say, "Oh, you're so lazy," and the other one, "Oh no, you're not that lazy. Just we do have these arguments sometimes in our head, or maybe I'm generalizing again." But what are the parts? Because it's not as simple as the devil and the angel on the two shoulders, right?
If only it were that simple. And it's not quite as simple as body parts, where here's my left hand, here's my right hand, here's my shoulder, here's my nose, because we can't see them with our physical senses necessarily. But generally speaking, most people have the same sort of categories of parts. And so we have parts that are really, really, really very invested in getting things done. We've got our go-getter parts and our productive parts and our list maker parts and our cross the lists off parts and our say
The,
yes
the
to
good ones.
everyone. um,
The, the, The socially admired
The
ones.
social, I like socially admired, yes, because if you dig in a little deeper, you'll see that we actually need all of the parts. They all have a job to play. But yes, the socially acceptable ones, the ones that get the pats on the head, the gold star parts, right? And then we have parts that we label the bad parts, and those would be the ones who don't want to do the things. That's the procrastinators, the excuse makers, the ones that know that we should get up off the couch and we are still on the couch. The ones that know I should probably cook myself some food, but I'm eating popcorn and drinking a bottle of wine for dinner. And so, again, we're not judging them. We're just going, okay, what are these parts? We've got, most people have an anxiety part. And if you've seen the movie Inside Out, the sequel, Inside Out 2, did a beautiful job of showing how if you think about your best plans, most of us usually have a little anxiety part who comes in going, but what about this? And what if this goes wrong? And what if this goes wrong? And our anxiety part is really good at coming up with all of the things that could possibly go wrong, right? And so all of us have these parts. That the two categories of parts that I generally talk about are the ones who try to prevent things from going wrong. Those are the ones like, let's get up and do the things. Let's try to say yes and make everybody happy. That way nothing goes wrong, right? Those are our prevent the bad thing from happening parts. But then when that doesn't work, and it's life, so it won't always work, then we have what I call the reactive parts. And those are the parts who show up when our plans go. And those are the parts who, for some people, are distractors or avoiders or numbers. Some people have angry parts that will defend and get really hostile and aggressive. And the thing to know about parts is that just like your physical body needs all of the different systems. I don't particularly enjoy the vomit reflex, but if I have food poisoning, not to be gross, but if I eat poisoned food, it's really important that my body has a vomit reflex because that's how you get poison out. And often what we think of as our bad parts are things like the vomit reflex, that they're not fun and they're not pleasant, but they're necessary. I have a disclaimer here because this is important. I am saying that
Mhm.
all of our parts are good, but not all behavior is good. Clearly, there are behaviors that are harmful to ourselves, to other people, and behaviors can be good and bad. I'm not saying all behavior is acceptable and good and wonderful. I'm saying all of our parts are good, but not all of our behaviors are. But when you understand how to work with,
Mm.
like, for practical, just to bring this out of the realm of conceptual, I'm a recovering addict and I've been addicted to drugs, people, behaviors, all the things. I'm not saying addiction is good. I am saying the parts of me that looked to substances and to people and to behaviors, I'm not justifying it. I'm saying those parts of me were really trying to protect me from what they thought would be horrible. What were they trying to protect me from? Oh, the truth of what happened to me and the truth of how I harmed other people. And so it's not
Mm.
your job to understand and accept my addict parts, but it's mine. And because I have a relationship with my drug addict parts, they don't feel the need to go out and do those things anymore. And so developing a relationship inside, think of it as your inner family. That's, you live with them every day. We wake up inside our minds, we go to sleep inside our minds. As long as we're on the planet, having a relationship with our internal voices, even the scary ones, makes life work a whole lot more smoothly.
Are these many mental parts disconnected or different from emotions from the body? Are they parts, part of our personality, or are they stable in time? Yeah,
Mm,
that's the question.
that's a question. That's a great, there's a whole year's worth of questions we can unpack. So let's start with the part, are these parts of us that we're talking about stable over time? Are they part of our personality? And in the book, I really go into some of the myths about this idea of personality. And there's been 50 plus years of personality research. And the biggest myth that I see is that our personality is this one thing. You have one personality. You're either introvert or extrovert. You're either securely attached or insecurely attached. And what I believe, and people who subscribe to the multiverse of the mind, so so to speak, is that you don't only have one personality. We have many different personalities. And for people that are like, that sounds pathological. I don't want to have multiple personalities. Think of it more as many aspects of your personality. So the version of me, the personality that I'm speaking to you with now, Christina, it's not, I'm not being fake, but I am not going to look or sound like this in 2 hours when I'm home on my couch eating lunch, making crumbs on my couch and staring at my phone and watching TV. That's another version of me. You know, the forward facing clinician part is different than the part of me that will be snot crying to my therapist next week when I'm working on my own trauma. And so, if we can understand that personality is not one thing, but it's many, that makes room for why you feel sometimes in the same minute angry and kind and guilty and selfish and generous. How can I feel all of these things in 1 second about one topic? It's because you have a lot of different personalities. Think of them as different characters. I have therapist Britt, and I have public speaker at corporate events wearing a fancy suit Britt, and I have friend Britt, and I have hot mess Britt who, you know, is still fully human and working out my own stuff. And so are they stable over time? It does seem to appear that the general how we show up in the world is stable, but that doesn't mean unchangeable. My personality was fairly consistently really, really overwhelmed, under resourced, really dramatic. I was really into chaos. I loved high, huge, explosive types of things, whether good or bad. I don't enjoy those things anymore. And so I don't believe that your personality is set in stone. What we know about the brain is that the brain is plastic, meaning it can change over time. We can build new pathways. And if our brain can be changed, it would seem to be reasonable that our personality can be changed too.
Thank you for this answer. I actually absolutely share with you the skepticism about personality in general, because I think it just is too simplistic
Yes.
for a human nature. But I want to get back a little bit from into the discussion which we had earlier about recognizing the different parts of you. I think. And I'll probably probe from different angles the same kind of idea. One of the fears that a lot of people have is that if I recognize that part of me which needs to stay in pajamas in bed, or not jump into the scary endeavor. If we indulge those parts too much, and you made it very clear that you still have the part. It's the behavior which may be bad or good, but not the part. But how do you dare to actually look into those parts of you which might be less socially acceptable without the fear of indulging them too much and becoming the not so successful kind of version of you?
It's a really valid fear, right? And because so many people, including myself, have this belief if I indulge these parts, they're going to take over and I'll never get dressed or take a shower or try to do anything. And that's why it's important to separate. Indulging is not the same as validating. And I do think those two words get conflated, where if I recognize and validate the part of me that doesn't want to get off the couch, that's the same as indulging it. It is not. Indulging the part who doesn't want to get off the couch sounds like this. Well, I had a hard week and it's like life's really hard and I'm tired and I'll start tomorrow. And you know what, Bert? It's okay. You can lay on the couch and not shower or brush your teeth or return phone calls or do anything. It's fine. I mean, whatever. Just do your thing. That's indulging the part. Now, validating the part sounds like this. Okay, Britt, who doesn't want to get off the couch or shower or brush her teeth. I know it's been a hard week. I know you feel like absolute poo. I know that you don't want to do anything, and it makes sense that you don't want to do anything. And I love you too much to let you do that because that's actually not going to make you feel any better. So I know you don't want to, but we're getting off the couch. And if we do nothing else today, we're brushing our teeth and taking a shower. You can go back to the couch after we do that. So up, let's go. And so that's the difference between indulging and validating. Indulging my parts who want to do drugs would mean I let them go do drugs. I don't do that. I don't use drugs anymore. But that doesn't mean I'm not still occasionally going to have the thought, cocaine sounds really good right now. I'm tired. A line of cocaine would make this cleaning project a whole lot easier. Validating sounds like, yeah, Cocaine would actually, I mean, scientifically speaking, a line of cocaine would make my cleaning project go faster. However, that comes with way too high of a price and it's not worth it. So while yes, drug addict Brit, I know you want drugs, we're actually going to not do that. Sorry. I know that's a bummer, but drugs don't really do much for our life. So no. It's kind of like parenting. A good parent will validate a child, but not necessarily give in and indulge the child. I'm suggesting, and parts work suggests, that the relationship with our thoughts is more like a parent child and less like this cosmic battle between the angels and the devils.
That's a beautiful comparison. Now, to those of you who haven't read the book, I have to just give you a little maybe spoiler that yes, these topics are there. Addiction, there is quite a big chunk about that, and addiction not just to drugs, obviously, just any kind of addictive behaviors. Because, to be fair, workaholism can be addiction. You know, even talking from my perspective, even being too much into personal growth and spirituality may turn into addiction. There is also parenting, self-parenting in there, and I think the most important part is that this book is very nuanced. So if Britt sends something and it sounds like, whoa, did you just say that, you really need to go get the book, read it, and then you'll understand why this is being said and why it makes sense. Now, coming back to the internal monologue, which seems to be my, I don't know, my thing. I really liked how you separated the coaching and the controller, the coach and the controller, critic inside you. Could you explain the difference to people who haven't read the book, for example, and also do people have, and this wasn't in the book, so I'm asking you, hoping that maybe you know, do people have a natural tendency to speak to having this internal monologue in one or the other mood more, like is it's in your I wouldn't say personality, but is it more intrinsically natural for some people to be more supportive and to other people to be more like bullying type of self monologue?
Uh, the people who sort of grow up learning how to be kind to themselves, I don't know those people. I wasn't one of those people. I'm sure they exist. Life, there's a lot of people on the planet. So people who grew up knowing, yeah, I'm worthy of love and I'm going to speak to myself kindly. Like, I'm sure they're out there, but they're not my people. So if you're out there, like DM me or email me. I would love to become friends with you. I do think for most of us, we have to unlearn the self-bullying because it's in our language, you know, not therapy wasn't always available. There were a lot of generations who had really hard things that they had to do and not a lot of resources or skills, and certainly no understanding of the neuroscience of things like self-compassion or mindfulness, or why speaking to yourself kindly actually slows your stress hormones. So there's a very physiological basis for why self talk is actually an important skill. So, no, I don't think most people inherently are kind to themselves, at least not in my experience. And so that was the first part. And then your other question about the inner critic. And it's funny for people who are like, well, what's parts work? I don't understand parts work. I'll say to them, you know, that mean voice in your head that tells you it's not enough, it's never enough, you're not good enough, you're doing it wrong, and everyone's going to hate you. Most people will go, oh, yeah, I have an inner critic. Your inner critic is a part. Like that is a part of you. And if we were talking, you know, the parts who try to prevent bad things from happening and the parts who react, the inner critic is again not awesome and we want to retrain it, but the inner critic, their job is to protect you from being humiliated, being shamed. Public, you know, public shaming is a thing. And human brains are not wired for happiness. Human brains are wired to conserve energy, to recognize patterns, and to live. And so the inner critic's thought is, if I keep you feeling small and insignificant, then you'll never do anything, you'll never try anything. And if you never leave the cave, you're not going to get eaten by a lion. And so the inner critic is a very, very, very old programming voice that just kind of doesn't know any better. So our job is to train the inner critic. And in the book, I talk about how we don't want to be mean to ourselves or harsh, but a coach, a really good coach, if you think of a high, top peak performance coach, they're not going to sit there and tell their athletes, oh, poor you, you are tired. You don't feel like doing your conditioning today. So why don't we just watch TV and have a snack? No, a good coach doesn't tear their players down, but they know how to push and they know when to pull back and they know how to really like work to get the best out of their players. Our inner critic, if we know how to work with it, can become a high performance coach. Before I give a big stage speech, I don't think to myself, you suck, everyone's going to hate you. I do think, wow, I know you're terrified. I know your hands are shaking, and we're going to get out there and do this anyway. This is what we've been training for. You've been working for this. So I don't really care how you feel right now because you're going to go out and do this thing that you love to do. Ready, go. And so when the inner critic becomes a high performance coach, that's when we can push ourselves to test the limits, not that we think we should, but the ones that we want to. You don't have to climb every mountain, but most people, if they're honest, have a few mountains that do sound like fun. Like, oh, I'd love to learn that hobby, or I'd love to try that skill, but I can't because you stink, and what's the point? And no one will da 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 da. So the having a high performance coach on hand 24/7 is a really wonderful thing to have.
And I think this analogy is wonderful because there are a lot of people who sincerely believe that if they don't criticize themselves, they're not going to grow because criticism, or maybe we've been conditioned since childhood that, we are directed into the right course of action by criticism. So coach kind of doesn't sound like coach is not going to move you there. It's a wonderful analogy. Now, I wanted to ask you something which I found in your book really, well, I wouldn't call it disturbing, but you do pick up a very disturbing topic because it is disturbing about what we are capable of. And you brought as an example this art performance by, God, I forgot the name, Marina Abramovic.
Abramovich. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know that there has been also scientific research where actually scientists with horror discovered that humans are capable of causing harm to other humans. So, and there is a part about shadow work, of course, in your book. So, how to find courage to go into those parts of you which may turn out to be rather monstrous.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at her performance art pieces, she's a very brave artist in the way that she revealed human capacity. And I won't spoil it, but I go into it in the book, and you can look her up online. But her work basically shows that very average people, given the right conditions, are capable of horrendous, atrocious things. And again, 5 decades of research into psychology has validated that, all people, not just the people we think of as the psychopaths, all mothers, fathers, like the really nice lady down the street who makes cupcakes for the kids, like all of us under certain conditions have the capacity for both the greatest good and really difficult, harder truths. That doesn't mean we're all the same, and it doesn't mean we all act the same. But it means that within the human psyche is a large spectrum from evil to angelic, and most people fall somewhere in between. But your question of how do we start to get to know these scarier parts of us? And I'll use something a little less intense than our murderous capacity. Let's just start with something as simple as jealousy or gossip, right? Like we can all of us, if we're honest, go, yeah, there are times where as much as I'm a generous giver and I love my friends and I love society and humanity, there are times when I'm petty and shallow and gossipy and I look at someone's vacation photos and I'm all like, oh, who does she think she is? I want that. I bet she's a horrible person. I mean, we all have these aspects of ourselves that are not.
By the way, talking on that topic, please do not share pictures from Maldives. I'll be jealous.
It's so real. But the thing about confronting our shadows, and I use the word shadow just to be the things about ourselves that we don't want to look at. What we found, and mindfulness research has shown this, and neuroscience research has shown this, that confronting the things that scare us don't empower them, it diminishes their power. In other words, when we look at the monsters under our bed, we realize they're not so scary. So I have a jealous petty part. Okay. If I really get to know that part, likely I'll discover that that's a younger part, like a child part, like a 5-year-old who's going, no, it's mine, mine. Like, you're my friend. I don't want you talking to anyone else. And kids who are acting like that are not bad. They just need reassurance and love, and they need connection. And so jealousy and pettiness and gossip, I'm not saying you should do it. I'm saying the parts of you who like to do that or who want to do that are parts of you that need your love and care. If you see the pictures of the vacation and you're like, ugh, I want that, doesn't mean you're a bad person. It might mean that you need to really get real about, are you wanting to travel more? And if that's true, what choices do we need to make in your life now to help you achieve that goal? Um, and so even our scarier parts, and I've had to confront some pretty not awesome parts of myself. But when I go inside and I connect with them, they don't get bigger, they get smaller. And then when I can have compassion on, I don't have to have compassion on the parts of you who want to do bad things, but when I can have compassion on my own parts, that's when I'm less driven by their impulses. And so I don't need to have compassion for or even forgive other people. I mean, like, compassion is a good thing, but the work I'm talking about is inner work, not about, oh, someone did something bad to you, so you should have compassion on them because they're shadow parts. No, 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 no. Our job is first compassion and connection with every aspect of our own self. Because when we do that, we are less likely to show up in ways that harm ourselves or other people.
Thank you for this answer, and you actually have partially answered the question which I wanted to, or maybe fully, that I wanted to ask you, but I wanted to poke a little bit. So for those of you who are interested in parts work and would like to read the book, in her book, Britt actually goes deeper into the work with your shadow. So you can actually work through not just jealousy, but there's also anger there. There's God, suddenly I have a brain freeze where I don't remember what else was there, but the usual suspects, But I want to ask about the more intense aspects, and so according to some research, we actually have about half of the people have this capacity to do real harm to other people. It's simplified. So isn't it? And that's a provocative question. Isn't it better to leave that dragon, sleeping? Like, the Hobbit went into the mountain and woke up the dragon, and then the town burned down. What is the benefit of actually poking that dragon, considering that all of us might have parts which are so intensely capable of pretty horrible things?
Oh, that's such a great question. The metaphor is interesting because the metaphor with shadow work is, well, if you don't connect with the dragon, it's more likely that the town will burn down. Because if the dragon is in your head, I'm not saying I'm going to go poke your dragons, because that's not a great plan. But if the dragon is inside me and I ignore it long enough, it's going to wake up and it's going to come roaring. I am not suggesting that we spend days, hours, weeks journaling and connecting with the most horrific aspects of ourselves. That's not sustainable and it's not wise. And frankly, shadow work should never be done until trauma work is done first and stability work is done second, and resourcing work is part of all of that. It's like, until you're generally functional and you feel pretty resourced, doing shadow work is not a great idea. But assuming that you've solved for those other things, when you confront your shadows, all of the energy that you've been using to repress, distract, avoid, and be afraid of, all that energy gets freed up. And if you're not expending brain energy to repress, ignore, distract, or deny, that energy can then be used for creativity or innovation or connection or to build your life in a way that you want. If you really think of in like simplified units of energy, if it takes 25 units of energy to avoid the scary parts of yourself, well, that's kind of an expensive undertaking. If I
Mm.
can connect with those parts of myself, understands that just because I think it doesn't mean I'm going to do it, just because it's there doesn't mean it's true, and I don't have to fight with it. If I can release those 25 units of energy, I have a much bigger budget for building my life, which is a good thing.
It's a very interesting conversation, obviously, and the book covers a lot of those topics and more. Something which we didn't even come close to is, well, the parenting, and then there's the whole third part, which we completely haven't even touched. There is a part about relationships, and basically, get the book. Britt, you are welcome to show the book once again, and Masha, you're welcome to share the link, because the book does talk about things in very understandable language, very easy language. It's a very engaging read. You actually will read it faster than you can imagine, and it has a lot of exercises. It's really funny because I have to read professionally, and I've noticed some books just read faster because they're kind of the flow in that way, and other books like a little bit slower. It's like a river, you know. So yours is a fast river, which is good, I think. What do you think people who are in conflict with their shadow part? What can they do to embrace it and to befriend it and to acknowledge it? You have wonderful practices where you have step by step what you do when you discover that dragon, and then how do you deal with that dragon later. But what can they do right now if they don't read the book, if they don't have the time? This one tip that you could give to people.
I would say if I had to give one tip, don't start with the most difficult parts of yourself, like the parts of you, it's coming up on holidays for some people, the parts of you that feel really at odds with your family and have all of these really difficult thoughts. Maybe don't start with the level 10 stuff. Like if you're new to this process and you're new to parts work and you're new to shadow work, can we start with something smaller? And I think those small gains get really discounted. It's like, well, yeah, but I need to deal with the worst parts of myself first. It's like, yeah, but can we start with maybe even something positive? Like, are you really good at something and you haven't allowed yourself to acknowledge that? That's shadow work too. Shadow work isn't just about the bad things. Anything that you are not connected with about yourself, good or bad, is a shadow. And so for a lot of people, they're very connected to their flaws and their faults and the things about them that are not awesome and the parts that need to be self improved or whatever, personally developed. But how connected are you to your power, to your greatness, to your creativity, to your worthiness, to your beauty, to your capacity? That is just as much shadow work as anything else. So I would say for people who struggle, maybe today in your mind, tell yourself good job for something. It doesn't mean that you don't have to do all your things. It doesn't mean indulge. It just means, can you say, hey, you know what? You had a hard day today and I'm proud of you. Good job. For some people, that is shadow work. So let's
Mm.
start with not the hardest stuff. It is just as valid to build your muscles using the positive stuff as it is the negative stuff.
That's actually such a great answer, and something which I obviously was missing from this conversation. So thank you for this advice. I mean, not to start with number 10, uh, intensity. You have a very interesting hobby which you allowed yourself to do, or maybe it's not a hobby, circus, right? I just had to ask, where did it come from? And
So
it's so unusual. I've interviewed so many people. I don't think I have ever come across someone who wanted to do circus.
okay, so that's my hobby, and it is a hobby. So when I was a kid, I learned how to do circus stuff at summer camp, and then of course you grow up and become an adult, and you don't do things anymore. And then I had my big. I was 36, and my life fell apart, and I started from scratch, and I'm like, what do I want to do now? And I'm like, I want to run away and join the circus. Whatever that thing was as a kid was still there. And so I found that you can hire people as an adult to teach you that. And so I hired a coach, and within a few years, I just got obsessive about it. And so then I auditioned for a student company and got in and auditioned for a solo and got it and started performing. And it's very hobby. It is not professional level at all, but I love it because it's so just to my system. I'm like, you get to twirl and spin and wear sequins, and it's so hard and so scary and so painful that I don't think. It's the one place where my brain goes from this to that. And I love it so much.
Is it also about embracing all parts of you?
It turned into my poor coach, who's a brilliant coach, but she's not a trained therapist, but she sort of became one in our work together. Cause I'd be sitting in my hoop just crying because I was so frozen. And she didn't know, well, this is PTSD and I'm in a freeze response and I have parts. She didn't know any of that. She was just a really safe, really compassionate, competent coach who knew when to push me and knew when to hug me. And so she didn't know she was doing it. Thank you, Coach Elena Sherman, if you're listening. She didn't know it, but she was actually helping build the skill set that I now talk about in my books and in my practices. And it's a very transferable set of skills when you're coaching to know when to push, when to pull. And yeah, all parts show up in circus because there's no hiding. It's a 36-inch metal steel bar where everyone can see you and you're in a leotard. So your body's on display. There's no hiding. It's horrible and wonderful. And I love it.
Horrible and wonderful. It's thank you for the story because it also makes me feel less crazy. And by the way, if you haven't read the book, you'll find out there's a little of controversy about the word crazy in general. So I'm using it on purpose. So I feel a little less crazy because I have joked with my boxing trainer that you should start taking money both for the boxing training and therapy. So I guess
It's
there's
totally
something about about physical like challenging hobbies. So it is time, of course, to say goodbye. So I'll do my usual. First of all, if you haven't gotten the book yet, yeah, do get the book because it is going to take you on a very powerful journey, which you will be thankful for. Not all scary. In fact, you're in good hands. Also, uh, doesn't have to be a lot of time because there's a way to read it in the bathroom. It's also in the introduction, so you'll find out. And also, as an author myself, the best way, if you like the interview, if you like what you were hearing, the best way to support any author is to get their book. There is always space for another book on the shelf, especially on my empty shelves. And also, I think books are such wonderful things which you can pass on to another person who might need the same advice after you're done reading it. So get the book. And if you are not part of Mind Valley Book Club yet, do sign up because I have access to the world's best authors. Also, it's completely free. And now, my favorite question, before we go to my last question, if you're listening to us online, do leave a heart for my guest. And if you're watching it in recording, leave a heart under the recording. And the question to Britt is, how would you like your book to change the world?
Oh, oh, okay. Oof. How would I like my book to change the world? So there's so much work to do in the world, like we need all hands on deck and there's a lot to do. My teeny tiny contribution to all of the work that's needed is that people who like themselves tend to cause less harm to other people. I have not seen it where someone that felt pretty relatively okay about themselves was going out and causing mass harm. So I would love for my book to help people to like themselves a little bit more because it's not as out of reach as you might think. I hated myself. I profoundly hated myself for so many years. And I'm not sitting here like, I love myself all the time. No, I'm not even talking about loving yourself. I'm saying it's easier to like yourself than you think. And if you can get a little bit of ground in the, I kind of like myself, I do think the world can be a better place.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who joined us and who was online with us, and those who are watching us in recording. Thank you, guys, too, for sticking. Also, I do want to remind you, add this time to your calendar because, once it's in a calendar, it's much easier to stick to it. And I hope to see you next week. Bye bye.